In the scorching heat of a Mediterranean summer in 480 BCE, the sound of bronze clashing against bronze echoed through the dusty courtyards of the Athenian palaestra. Young Alexios, barely 18 and destined for military service, watched in fascination as seasoned hoplites prepared for their daily training. What he witnessed would shatter every assumption about ancient Greek warfare. If you're finding this story as fascinating as we are, make sure to subscribe for more incredible historical revelations that will change how you see the ancient world. The morning sun cast long shadows across the rectangular courtyard, its heat already promising another blistering day that would test the endurance of even the most seasoned warriors. Alexios had arrived before dawn, eager to begin his transformation from citizen to hoplite, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to witness. The warriors weren't donning their bronze armor first. Instead, they were methodically rubbing their muscled bodies with olive oil, a practice so fundamental to Greek military culture that no training session could begin without it. But this wasn't about looking intimidating or creating some fearsome, glistening appearance for psychological warfare. The truth was far more practical and scientifically sophisticated than anyone could imagine. Each warrior carried 3 essential items to the palaestra: an oil flask, aribalos, a scraper, strigil, and a sponge. The aribalos, a ceramic container with intricate designs ranging from simple globes to elaborate shapes resembling birds, animals, or even human body parts, held each soldier's daily allotment of precious olive oil. These weren't mere cosmetic accessories. They were as vital to a Greek warrior as his spear and shield. The vessels themselves told stories of their owners' accomplishments. Veterans bore aribaloi decorated with scenes of past victories, while younger soldiers carried simpler designs, earning the right to more elaborate containers through proven valor in battle. The oil within wasn't just any olive oil. It was often scented with herbs and specially prepared to maximize its beneficial properties. As Alexios observed the ritual, he noticed the methodical precision with which each warrior applied the oil. They began at their feet, working upward in specific patterns that seemed almost ceremonial. The movements were deliberate, ensuring every inch of exposed skin received adequate coverage. This wasn't random application. It was a technique perfected over generations of military training. An experienced pancratiast named Cleomenes approached him, his weathered frame bearing the scars of countless battles and training sessions. His hands, gnarled from years of grappling, moved with surprising gentleness as he continued his own oil application. "Boy," he said, his voice weathered by years of combat training and battlefield commands, "you think we oil ourselves to look fierce in battle?" He laughed, a deep rumble that spoke of countless victories and hard-won wisdom. "Watch carefully, and I'll show you why our enemies fear Greek soldiers more than any others." This, the veteran's eyes held the knowing glint of someone who had seen the oil practice make the difference between victory and defeat in actual combat. He had witnessed Persian warriors, magnificent in their elaborate armor and colorful silk garments, struggle helplessly against slippery Greek fighters who seemed to flow like water through their grasps. "In my 20 years of service," Cleomenes continued, beginning to demonstrate the proper technique, "I've seen this practice save more lives than the finest bronze breastplate. The Persians think we're barbarians for fighting with naked, oiled bodies. They don't understand that we've turned our flesh into armor more effective than anything their metal workers can forge." Indeed, the young recruit's eyes widened as he realized he was about to learn one of the most closely guarded secrets of Greek military superiority, a practice that would give their forces an unprecedented advantage on ancient battlefields. Around him, other warriors continued their preparations, their movements creating a hypnotic dance of bronze and olive oil that spoke to traditions stretching back to the heroic age. The palaestra itself seemed to breathe with anticipation. The large courtyard, surrounded by roofed colonnades supported by marble columns, had witnessed generations of warriors preparing for the defense of their city-state. The scammer, wrestling pits filled with soft sand, awaited the day's training, while the rooms along the periphery buzzed with the quiet conversations of men preparing for war. Cleomenes began by demonstrating the oil application process with methodical precision, his movements reflecting decades of practiced ritual. The Greeks, through the use of olive oil, succeed in increasing skin elasticity and blood supply to the underlying muscle, he explained, working the golden liquid into his weathered skin with firm, circular motions. This isn't superstition, boy. This is survival science that our physicians and trainers have perfected over centuries. As the oil penetrated his skin, Cleomenes continued his explanation, pausing to ensure Alexios understood each crucial point. Post-exercise massage combined with the oil rub resulted in faster recovery of the athlete as the blood flow increased and the product of metabolic processes was removed rapidly from the extended blood vessels. He paused, watching Alexios process this information, while demonstrating how the oil seemed to bring a healthy flush to his skin. In simpler terms, we fight longer, recover faster, and outlast our enemies when they're gasping for breath and collapsing from exhaustion. The practice had evolved from centuries of athletic competition in the great Pan-Hellenic Games. Ancient athletes in training and competition would cover themselves in oil before starting, and this tradition had seamlessly transferred to military applications through the inherent connection between athletic prowess and warrior skill. The greatest Olympic champions often became the most feared soldiers, bringing their refined techniques from the stadium to the battlefield. But the benefits extended far beyond muscle preparation. Cleomenes continued, beginning to move through a series of combat positions that showcased his fluid grace. It helped to protect their skin from the sun, reduce muscle fatigue, and enhance their physical appearance. Under the blazing Greek sun, unprotected skin would burn and blister during extended training sessions or lengthy sieges that could last months. The oil acted as a natural barrier, creating a protective layer that allowed soldiers to maintain peak performance in the harsh Mediterranean climate where summer temperatures could reach unbearable levels. Alexios watched in fascination as Cleomenes demonstrated how the oil seemed to create a second skin. When he moved, the light caught the surface and created an almost ethereal glow. But more importantly, when he pressed against rough surfaces, the oil provided a buffer that prevented scraping and cutting. Imagine fighting for hours on rocky terrain without this protection, the veteran explained. Your skin would be torn to ribbons before you ever engaged the enemy. But perhaps most importantly for combat effectiveness, the coating of oil prevented the loss of bodily fluids during exercise. In an era before modern hydration science, Greek commanders had empirically discovered that oiled soldiers could fight longer before succumbing to dehydration, a crucial advantage in prolonged battles where victory often went to the army that could maintain combat effectiveness longest. The scientific understanding behind the practice was remarkably sophisticated. Ancient medical theory generally assumed that the body contained 4 humors: blood, phlegm, bile, and black bile. The health of an individual, and even his or her character, was thought to be determined by the balance between these different elements. Greek physicians had determined that anointing oneself with oil was thought to have a moistening effect, and could therefore be used to bring dry athletes back to a better balance of humors. Cleomenes began demonstrating grappling techniques, his oiled body sliding effortlessly out of grips that would have been inescapable on dry skin. Each movement seemed to flow into the next with water-like fluidity. "Watch this carefully," he instructed, allowing Alexios to attempt a grip on his forearm. The young recruit's hands slipped away despite his best efforts. "Now you begin to understand," The veteran smiled grimly. When swords break and shields shatter, when the phalanx formation collapses into individual combat, a Greek warrior's true weapon is his knowledge of hand-to-hand combat. And oil makes us nearly impossible to hold. The demonstration continued as other warriors joined in, showing how traditional wrestling holds became useless against an oiled opponent. "This isn't just about slipping away," Cleomenes explained. "The oil changes everything about close combat. Your enemy can't grip your arms to control your weapon hand. He can't grab your legs to bring you down. He can't even hold you steady for a killing blow. While he's struggling to maintain his grip, you're free to strike, to move, to find the opening that will end the fight." The training intensified as more warriors joined the session, transforming the quiet morning preparation into a symphony of controlled violence. Wrestling, boxing, and pankration were taught and practiced together, and Alexios began to understand why these combat sports were called the heavy events. They formed the backbone of Greek military hand-to-hand combat training, creating warriors who were equally deadly with weapons or without them. The palestra came alive with the sounds of combat training. Grunts of exertion mixed with the sharp crack of flesh striking flesh, while the scraping of feet in sand created a rhythmic undertone to the morning's activities. Veterans moved with the fluid grace of dancers, their oiled bodies reflecting the strengthening sunlight as they demonstrated techniques that had been refined through generations of warfare. Eventually, pankration became the core focus of a Greek soldier's hand-to-hand training regime. This evidence suggests that pankration was created to supplement a warrior's battle prowess, as weapons would often break and combatants would have to use their bare hands and feet. Cleomenes gestured toward a group of advanced students who were practicing the no-holds-barred fighting style that combined every aspect of unarmed combat known to the Greek world. The connection between athletic competition and military preparedness was absolute. Warriors who excelled in the Olympic Games were immediately recruited for elite military units, their proven ability to perform under pressure making them invaluable assets in battle. The oil practice that gave them advantages in athletic competition translated directly to battlefield superiority. Cleomenes paired Alexios with another recruit for his first oiled wrestling match, a moment that would forever change the young man's understanding of Greek military science. The moment their bodies made contact, the young soldier understood the tactical brilliance of the practice. Pancratiasts would compete naked in a wrestling pit and covered themselves in oil, just as they were doing now. Grips that should have been solid became impossible to maintain. Throws that relied on grabbing cloth or armor became useless. The sensation was unlike anything Alexios had experienced. His opponent's skin felt like polished marble, smooth, warm, and impossible to grasp effectively. Every technique he had learned in preliminary training had to be completely reconsidered. Traditional holds simply didn't work. He found himself constantly off balance, reaching for grips that dissolved at the moment of contact. "Imagine," Cleomenes called out as the recruits grappled, his voice carrying the authority of battlefield experience. "You're fighting a Persian warrior who has never encountered this technique. His bronze armor is heavy, restricting his movements and slowing his reflexes. His silk undergarments become soaked with sweat, making him even more uncomfortable. You, however, are swift, slippery, and trained in every form of unarmed combat known to man." The strategic implications became increasingly clear as the training progressed. Soldiers trained in pankration were highly appreciated in the famous Macedonian phalanxes, as Alexander the Great was said to have given them priority in the recruitment of his army. This wasn't merely about individual combat prowess. It was about creating an elite class of warriors who could adapt to any battlefield situation, from the rigid formations of phalanx warfare to the chaotic melee of broken lines. The psychological impact was equally important. Ancient Greeks achieved better recovery of the acid-base balance of the body and further restored the pH of the arterial blood to normal levels through their oil and massage regimen. In practical terms, this meant Greek soldiers could fight multiple engagements in a single day while their enemies succumbed to exhaustion. The sight of fresh Greek warriors still fighting effectively while their own forces flagged created a devastating morale effect on enemy forces. Cleomenes demonstrated advanced techniques that showed how oil changed the entire dynamic of combat. When your enemy expects you to be where you were a moment ago, but you've flowed like water to a new position, you control the fight, he explained, while effortlessly avoiding his training partner's attempts to grapple with him. Persian warriors train to fight other heavily armored soldiers who move predictably. They're not prepared for opponents who can change direction instantly and slip through their defenses like smoke. As the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, Alexios noticed something remarkable that validated everything he had learned. While he and the other oiled warriors remained relatively cool and mobile, observers without oil were already showing signs of heat exhaustion. Their movements had become sluggish, their breathing labored, and sweat poured from their bodies in streams. The implications for extended sieges or long marches were staggering. "Now you see why we never fear lengthy battles," Cleomenes observed, noting Alexios's realization. "While our enemies wilt under the Mediterranean sun, we remain fresh and ready to fight. The oil doesn't just protect us, it preserves our strength for when we need it most." Like this incredible historical insight. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments what other ancient military secrets you'd like us to uncover. As twilight approached and the training session neared its end, painting the palaestra in shades of gold and amber, Cleomenes gathered the recruits for a final demonstration that would cement their understanding of this ancient military science. Using a tool called a strigil to scrape off the mixture of oil, sweat and dirt from their bodies, he began the cleansing ritual that concluded every training session, a practice as important as the initial oil application. The strigil, a curved bronze implement shaped like a shallow spoon, had been passed down through generations of warriors. As Cleomenes demonstrated the proper technique, the accumulated grime and oil came away in thin ribbons, revealing skin that was remarkably clean and healthy beneath. The scraping motion wasn't just about cleanliness, it was a form of massage that further enhanced circulation and muscle recovery. "What you've learned today," he addressed the young warriors, his voice carrying the weight of decades spent perfecting the warrior's art, "is why Greek armies have dominated the known world. It's not just our bronze armor or our phalanx formations, though those are formidable, it's our understanding of the human body as the ultimate weapon, something that can be refined and perfected through knowledge and discipline." The systematic approach to warrior development that the Greeks had created was unmatched in the ancient world. While other cultures relied primarily on equipment and numerical superiority, the Greeks had created a holistic system that optimized every aspect of human performance. The oil practice was just one element in a comprehensive approach to military excellence that included diet, exercise, mental conditioning, and tactical training. Ancient physicians, including Hippocrates, Theophrastus, and Dioscorides, extolled its many benefits, including for digestive issues, oral care, skin conditions, and in dealing with sports injuries in combination with massage. The medical establishment had endorsed what warriors had known for generations. Olive oil was liquid medicine, a substance that could enhance human performance in ways that modern science was only beginning to understand. The integration of medical knowledge with military training represented a level of sophistication that wouldn't be matched for centuries. Greek physicians worked closely with athletic trainers and military commanders to develop practices that maximized soldier effectiveness. The oil treatment was part of a comprehensive health regimen that included specific diets, exercise routines, and recovery protocols. Alexios marveled at the sophistication of it all, understanding now that he was part of a military tradition that was far more complex than he had ever imagined. Ancient medical theory generally assumed that the body contained four humours: blood, phlegm, bile and black bile. Anointing oneself with oil was thought to have a moistening effect and could therefore be used to bring dry athletes back to a better balance of humours. A Greek military science was built on both empirical observation and medical theory, creating a system that was both practical and scientifically grounded. The practice had profound religious significance as well, connecting warriors to the divine sources of their strength and wisdom. During ancient athletic competitions, athletes would coat their bodies with olive oil in hopes of infusing themselves with the strength of the goddess Athena. For these warriors, the oil carried the blessing of the goddess of both wisdom and warfare, making them instruments of divine will on the battlefield. The religious dimension added a spiritual component to the physical preparation. Warriors weren't just preparing their bodies for combat, they were participating in a sacred ritual that connected them to the gods and to the heroic traditions of their ancestors. The oil became a medium through which divine favor flowed, transforming ordinary men into instruments of Athenian military might. As Cleomenes concluded the lesson, he pointed toward the distant Acropolis, where the sacred olive tree of Athena grew in eternal testament to the goddess's gift to the Athenian people. The tree, silvery green leaves rustling in the evening breeze, had been growing there since the mythical contest between Athena and Poseidon for patronage of the city. Every drop of oil we use carries the blessing of the goddess of wisdom and warfare. Our enemies see only naked, glistening warriors, but we know we carry the accumulated knowledge of generations. The olive tree represented more than just religious significance. It embodied the connection between the land, the people, and their military traditions. The oil that protected and strengthened Greek warriors came from the same trees that fed their families and illuminated their homes. It was a reminder that they fought not just for glory, but for the preservation of everything that made their civilization unique. This tale was immortalized in the ancient Olympic Games, where victorious athletes were crowned with olive wreaths, considered the highest possible award in ancient Greece. The connection between athletic excellence and military prowess was complete, creating a culture where physical perfection and martial skill were inseparable aspects of citizenship. The Olympic tradition ensured that the oil practices would be preserved and refined through peaceful competition during times when wars weren't being fought. Athletes pushed the boundaries of human performance, discovering new applications and benefits that could then be incorporated into military training. The Games served as a laboratory for military innovation, disguised as religious festival. Years later, as Alexios stood in the ranks at Marathon, his bronze armor gleaming and his body prepared with the sacred oil that had become as familiar as his own skin, he would remember this lesson with crystal clarity. When the Persian arrows darkened the sky like a swarm of locusts and close combat began, when bronze met bronze and the fate of Greek civilization hung in the balance, he would understand why his people had never been conquered by foreign powers. The secret wasn't just in their weapons or their formations, though both were formidable. It was in their complete mastery of the warrior's art, from the sacred olive groves that blessed their land to the blood-soaked battlefields where they defended their freedom. They had turned their bodies into weapons as refined and deadly as any bronze spear, using nothing more than the golden oil that had blessed their land since the dawn of civilization. In the growing darkness, as the last of the oil was scraped away, and the warriors prepared to return to their homes, Alexios felt the weight of tradition settling on his shoulders. He was no longer just a young man from Athens. He was part of an unbroken chain of warriors that stretched back to the heroes of legend, each one prepared with the same sacred oil that would make him nearly invincible in combat. What did you think of this incredible journey through ancient Greek military science? Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing historical revelations that prove the ancient world was far more sophisticated than we ever imagined.